We used to have jobs, a mortgage, a house full of stuff, but we gave it all up and decided we were going to slow travel the world full time. So in this video, we're going to share 10 tips and some possible mistakes that we might have made to help you out on your journey. Whether you're going to travel for a year or travel forever, hopefully we can help you out.
So we're going to assume that you've made the decision to either travel full time or you're considering the decision to adopt this type of lifestyle.
Hi, if you're new to the channel, we are Dharmesh and Kieran from KD Travelers, two early retirement slow travelers sharing our journey and knowledge to help others do the same. Let's travel together.
So here are some of the tips to help you get started as you prepare for this lifestyle. We've had an opportunity over the last year and a half to really think about this. So we're hoping that some of these will be helpful to you. So without further delay, let's start with tip number 1.
All right, so tip number 1 is get clear on the why. Long-term travel, it's not a vacation. It's not like just going out for a week or 2 weeks and then coming back from the beach or whatever. It's a change in the actual lifestyle that you're leading. So this is a category and a tip that we think is very important that you want to start with, and decide on what it is that you want and why you're doing this.
Right. I guess it's a big commitment is what we're saying, so
Yes.
we need to be sure. So for us, our reason for doing this was we wanted to break out of the 9-to-5 cycle, get out of that rat race, and also improve our family health. And the bottom line was we wanted the freedom to travel on our terms and at our pace. Correct?
Correct. That's it. All right. So now moving on. So now tip number 2 is downsize your life now. This one's very important and the one that we wish we had known earlier, but we suggest that starting your decluttering as early as possible. You don't realize how much you have until you start. So definitely this was one that people get caught off guard on, I think.
Right. So you want to sell, donate, or store only the essentials. Like as John said, we didn't realize how much we had. We thought we were minimalists. We really felt that our house didn't hold a lot of things. But as we started packing up and decluttering, we realized that we had acquired a lot more over the years. So don't underestimate how much stuff you have. Get started as early as possible.
As early as possible, for sure. Okay, so the next tip number 3, emotionally prepared to let go of stuff. This one kind of ties in a bit with the downsizing as well, but it's a really difficult one for a lot of people, because downsizing isn't just a practical thing. It's a very emotional thing. So we are attached to as a lot more things than you really think or know that you are to. So I think one of the other things within this one is to make it easier on yourself is to start downsizing and decluttering with smaller things that are easier for you to get rid of. Give those small wins to yourself so you feel that confidence and you feel that you're moving forward. So small things like clothes or old paperwork, things that you know are easy for you to let go of and get rid of. Start tackling those before you get to the bigger items and the more emotional items.
Yeah. And our approach was that we are very practical people. Like on a regular basis, usually we do a good spring cleaning every year. And although we're very practical, we still had trouble deciding on what to let go when it came to certain things. Like I used to craft a lot, and for me that was a struggle letting go of my craft things, because there's such an emotional attachment. And I know for you had trouble letting go of some of this stuff as well.
Well, I mean, and that's where it comes into. I mean, there's going to be things like, think about the childhood things that you've held on to for years and decades. Doesn't mean that you have to get rid of everything. Now, once again, it's a matter of deciding which ones are the most important items for you emotionally and things that you want to hold on to. And you can put those into a few boxes and keep them with family, or depending on your situation, if you've still got a place that you're keeping in your home-based country, then keep them there. But the thing here is just try to decrease as much as you possibly can, and that'll make your life a little bit simpler and easier.
Yeah, we only kept a few sentimental items and they fit in a few boxes. So at the end of the day, I think we did pretty good.
Okay, let's move on to the next tip. Tip number 4, test the lifestyle before committing. So this one's an actual kind of nice one. I mean, it gives you that sort of ability to sort of just test the waters. So what we say is before you go selling everything and doing everything else, take an extended trip maybe if you're able to. Pack up that backpack or the carry-ons and go for a month to a foreign country.
We didn't have the opportunity to do this because our timeline was just simply too quick. But as you said, it's important if you're able to do it to try it out, because it really gives you a sense of what life's going to be like living out of that smaller backpack or carry-on, and then also living in a foreign country if you're able to do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next let's move on to tip number 5. Create a financial cushion. This one here, we suggest that, and we've actually done some research and people have told us, and what we found out is you should have at least 6 months of travel expenses put aside for emergencies. So consider looking at your savings, your investments, and having that extra financial cushion for any emergencies that really come up.
Mm-hmm. Things change a lot when you're on the road, and for us, we felt comfortable with that amount of money just in case, because we've never been out there. We sort of had an idea of what our budget was going to be, but we weren't sure if the expenses would really, line up with our budget. And we've all noticed in the last little while that, if you're relying on investments, that can fluctuate. So you can't, rely on the investments to be that exact amount that you thought were going to come in.
And like I said, it's going to fluctuate depending on your budget. Everybody has different levels and the way that you spend each month too. So it all depends on what you require and what your needs are. So tip number 6, make travel health insurance a priority. We've talked about this over in our other videos and stuff, how important it is to have that health insurance. You just don't know what's going to happen while you're traveling, little emergencies, anything like that. So this is definitely an important one. What you want to look at is this isn't just regular health insurance. This is for those situations where it's an emergency. Do your research early and as soon as possible try to secure that health insurance. It'll take that burden off your shoulder, that worry that you've already got that taken care of. Mm-hmm. There's lots of different companies. I mean, we're not sponsored in any way, but we're actually using a Nomad insurance right now called Genki. But there's others like Safety Wing. You've also got Cigna Global. There's Blue Cross. There's so many out there, and that's the concern. You want to do your homework and make sure you've got what you need for your own health coverage.
Yeah. And the reason that we really feel that this is a priority is we ran into an issue with this one. Mm-hmm. We had sold a house. We had initially started traveling across Canada, and we did research with one of the companies well in advance, but we were told that we didn't need to activate the insurance till closer to when we were leaving. And when we did approach the company at that point, you got denied.
Yes.
And that was very challenging because we're not comfortable being on the road without global health insurance. Mm-hmm. And I know some people take that chance. Mm-hmm. So then we had to scramble and try to look for an alternative. And I know that was a huge stress for us.
Yeah, that was a big stressor. I mean, so it's definitely another big component within your planning, and one that you should start early and soon and secure. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now the next tip number 7, is get the right banking setup. In this one, it's more getting those little things figured out on how you're going to access your finances, your money, and how you're going to spend it. So just make sure that you are able to, get in touch with the proper financial people if you're on the road and how to do it. Plus, being able to spend. The right credit card is very important. You want to make sure you don't have any foreign transaction fees. Mm-hmm. These are these little fees that can add up over time easily. Yeah. So you want to make sure your credit card, if you're able to get one that doesn't have that. The other thing would be to make sure about ATM fees. Depending on how you use that card, you want to make sure that you're not getting charged too high or you're being reimbursed for. Unfortunately, most of the Canadian banks don't do that, but we've heard that a lot of the US banks will reimburse you your ATM fees. Mm-hmm. So once again, I'll say this isn't sponsored, but the card that we found very helpful for us is called the Wise card. And we'll do a whole video later on that and talk about that. But it's the one that allows us to be able to get foreign currencies on the card and use those. So take a look if you want, but once again, we're not being sponsored at all for that. It doesn't have the foreign transaction fees and things like that.
Yeah. And one of the things we would suggest is, although you've got all the right travel banking set up, one of the things you should consider doing is to have a backup debit and credit cards. Like very similar to ensuring that your investments are diversified, you need to make sure your financial credit cards and ATM cards, if you can diversify, do that as best as possible. We did run into an issue partway through our travel where, unfortunately, John's card was compromised. We had an incident where your card was compromised, and we were lucky that we had a backup in place. Like, imagine if we didn't. Like, pretty much everything we're doing as we're traveling, we need that credit card, especially for our housing.
Yeah, and that was, to clarify, that was actually my actual credit card.
And we had additional credit cards that we could leverage at that point. Yeah.
Number 8. Digitizing your important documents and photos. So this one here comes in very handy. It's very useful when you're on the road because you don't want to be traveling around with all these papers and documents if you can avoid it. You don't have to worry about losing things. So scan and store copies of such things as your passport, IDs, medical records, even your travel insurance. You've got these backups on your device, on your laptop. You'll be able to access them if you need to. You don't have to carry it. So once again, in regards to those, you probably want to have like cloud storage, or if you've got Google Drive, or one of those kind of abilities to be able to access those. And it comes in handy right here.
Yeah, it does. And we've been caught in a situation when we were actually in Portugal, went out for a day trip, and I unexpectedly wasn't feeling well, and I had to go into a medical clinic. We don't always carry our passports with us when we go on a day trip within the same country, and it's a good thing we had a digital copy of the passport. So, because all the medical clinics and new pharmacies will want a copy of that. So, a good thing we had access to that. Yeah. The other thing we found very helpful when we were digitizing was, John did a really good job, is to digitize all of our old family photos. So when you're on the road, there's times that, we want to sort of look back on things, or we want to access certain documents. It's good to digitize as much as possible. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, once again, now you're not holding on. It's part of that downsizing as well, right? If you can digitize everything, then you don't need to worry about storing it and things like that. It's you've got it handy at all times.
Right.
Go back to it. Okay, tip number 9, train yourself to live with less. This is before you leave for the full-time travel or the slow travel, is where these tips are regards to. So this one here is actually kind of a fun one. Pack, like I said, pack your travel bags months in advance. Try to be able to pack just what you're going to think that you're going to be traveling with, and live with those. Even if you're just living at home with those, try not to use anything outside of your closet. So it's what's in that bag is what you're going to be living off. So let's try and work with it.
Yeah. It really forces you to fine-tune what you might need on the road. And this is something that we really thought about and wish we had done before we left our home, because as you can see, we're going to show you, we packed far too much when we first left. And frankly, we didn't need majority of what we had with us. Like I would say maybe 20% of what we brought was what we ended up keeping.
Oh, I would say it's probably even less. Yeah, it's more than half, I'd probably say.
And it's not just clothing, it's also gadgets. Because when you initially go out, you're going to think you need a ton of gadgets being on the road, but you don't actually need them. So if you can practice this before you leave, you'll save yourself a lot of grief and save yourself a lot of headaches of carrying luggage around.
Yeah. And I'll confess, I'll say, okay, I was carrying a lot more of the gadget stuff. Kieran definitely had a bit more clothing than I did.
Yeah.
So we both had our little things, but we're getting there. We won't say we're experts at this point. We won't say we've got it completely down to perfect. But as we continue growing and traveling, we've been starting to reduce. We'll give you a video on that as well. So keep an eye out for that. All right, so the final tip number 10, redefine what home means to you. In this one here, when you sell everything, when you downsize, when you reduce everything, so what you have to do is actually rethink and redefine what home means to you. Instead of having that house, think of what home is as a feeling. Our home for us is us together. It's us being and spending time together, and that comfort that we get from being around each other. That's home for us.
Yeah. I think previously we used to always think, we needed a house to feel that stability, right? And really, like, a lot of times when we went on vacation, I would say towards the end, I can't wait to get home, right? And so we really needed to shift our mind to what does that home really mean? And when we talked about it, as Dom said, for us, home was us being together wherever that is. But what we try to do is, it's nice that we're able to stay at places a bit longer, so we're able to incorporate routines or stuff that we would normally have done when we lived in our house, right? So just little things that you could incorporate into your routine, whatever that is for you.
So, well, those are the 10 tips. Hopefully you find one or two, or probably all of them maybe helpful. Please, in the comments, let us know if any of them really stood out for you, or if you have more questions about any of those.
And let us know in the comments, if you are planning to travel full-time, where would you go? Is this a lifestyle that you would want to consider embracing? For us, it's been exciting and it's been adventurous. So until next time, let's travel together.
Please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep an eye out for any future videos.